Dastardly deed. I'm sure most of the Confederates and her fellow spies thought that was pretty heroic. When you write poetry inspired by history, you can choose from thousands and probably millions of interesting characters. Like I said, history is full of pirates. Speaking of which, I wrote this poem about Blackbeard the Fierce Pirate, one of my favorite characters from history. Oh, go to a town in England, and perhaps you can hear the tale of a fierce pirate named Blackbeard, who drank much rum and ale. He put firecrackers in his hat, and his beard made many fear. He'd make their girls walk the plank without sparing a single tear. He blasted ships of war to pieces with no thought of the people who'd die, killed all those who surrendered and never surrendered a sigh. He killed anybody he hated, he tortured stowaways and spies alike. He drowned his first mate just for fun and ran his cousin under a spike. He had 8 boxes full of knives. On his ship there were cannons 9. I'm laughing because none of this is historical pretty much. He took pride in his shiny pistols, which looked elegant and fine. He needed to make men cry for mercy, although no mercy he gave. He just ran them through with a wave of his knife and made his mother roll in her grave. I am so sorry. I'm probably making a lot of people roll in their graves right now, but that's the story of the great pirate Blackbeard, whose hobby was torturing rats. And that is the only part of the entire poem that I could keep a straight face. I wrote this a long time ago, and a long time ago for me is like maybe 1 or 2 years ago. And I'll go through actually and highlight some of the parts in here that are not historically accurate. That's fine. I think you probably did drink a bit. Beard, I don't know about that. Oh, let me make it yellow. Sparing a single tear. Okay, maybe that's true, but still. Killed all those who surrendered. I haven't heard that one actually. And never surrendered a sigh. I'm sure he sighed once or twice. Killed anybody he hated. I'm sure he would have liked to, but I don't know if that's possible. Tortured stowaways and spies alike. Drowned his first mate just for fun. Okay, honestly, I did make up a lot of this stuff because it rhymed, but that's the point. It doesn't have to be a bunch of dry facts about history. You can read a textbook for that. I made up and added a lot of these things for dramatic effect. For instance, that thing about Blackbeard torturing rats, well, rat rhymes with hat, and I thought it added to the poem. If anything, it was the only thing that I could say seriously. So when you write poems inspired by history, you can add your own creative touches. And you can really imagine how people from history might have acted, talked, or even smells. Although, to tell you the truth, I bet a lot of them smelled pretty bad just because during most of European history, people didn't bathe very much. History is really a renewable source of poetry inspiration. So you can really look at it again and again. History really spans thousands of years, and if you want to go into like geologic and dinosaur kind of stuff, you're going to find millions. And you don't have to limit yourself to just writing about one person. You could write poems about castles or citadels, protesters or presidents, brigands or brigadier generals. You could write 365 poems and still cover just 1 year of our hundreds and thousands of years of history. You'll never run out of ideas because each day people make new history that will inspire you, terrify you, or thrill you. Jackie Robinson is a historical figure, Marilyn Monroe is a historical figure, so is J.K. Rowling. And you might be thinking, J.K. Rowling isn't dead yet. Well, she will go down history because she did something that was new or amazing for her time. She sold a ton of books that were translated into multiple languages, and she was really able to relate to people across the world. And these people changed many lives. So I read you my poem about the cruel pirate Blackbeard. Now it's your turn. Remember, when you write a poem inspired by history, you can choose to write about music in the past or even fashion. For example, you could write about foot binding in ancient China, or the high-heeled shoes of the Middle Ages, which I've heard were worn by men first. You don't have to limit yourself to ancient history either. You could write about something that happened 30 years ago. Just interview your parents. I'm sure they'll let up that they're that old. Or even last month. To participate in this activity, pause the screen. Here's some activities. You can choose an intriguing person or event from history. So I'm sure you can find lots of those, maybe some of your heroes, some of the people you really don't like. I'm sure you can also find lots of those. Discover information about this person or event. You can use the internet or make an expedition to the library. I would actually suggest both. It's good to get both online and print sources. Write down interesting details that you discover, so some note-taking skills. Write down action words and adjectives to describe your person event. So make a list, verbs, action words, and then adjectives. And then write a poem about the event or person using your list for inspiration. If you're feeling lazy, well, not really lazy, maybe if you just don't want to make that extra effort, try writing a poem about a historical person you just learned about in school. Wait a second, no, that's not being lazy. Actually, that is going to help you review the things you learned. So that's a really good idea. Write a poem about a historical person you just learned about in school. You'll already know plenty about them, and writing a poem about them will help you remember the information and do better on the test. So that is a good way. When you write about the dead at Gettysburg or the temples of Chichen Itza, you really have to think about the subjects in a new way. You can think about colors and shapes and sounds and smells, and you can imagine what it felt like to be there. So that's a really powerful thing about poetry, is that you are really creating the senses for your readers, for readers who haven't really been there, and for yourself, you haven't really been there, and you're able to really recreate that. Writing poems about historical events or characters you are studying in school offers you the chance to use your imagination and really feel the excitement of other people's lives. You don't have to focus on famous people. You could write about a time period or a historical event from the point of view of a chimney sweep or a beggar. You can experiment with different styles. For example, you could write haikus, and we'll learn about haikus later as well. You could write haikus about the Boston Tea Party and the Alien and Sedition Acts. Or you could write a free verse poem about the Trail of Tears. Or you could focus your poem on a specific event in a historical figure's life, like the moment when Lincoln was assassinated. When you've written a poem about something, it's really, really hard to forget it. Plus, it's fun. As you can tell from my Blackbeard poem, not all of your historical poems need to be serious. For example, you could write about George Washington farting or Abraham Lincoln having a conversation with a dog. Here's some other ideas you can try out. Write a poem from the point of view of a historical character who frightens you. Write a poem about a historical event you are studying in school. Write a poem about a fashion trend that was popular when you were younger or when your parents were younger. Yeah, just ask your parents and maybe you'll learn some interesting things. I'm sure some of your parents will be saying, oh yeah, the hoop skirt, the crinoline was really popular. Actually, no, your parents are probably not quite that old. Write a poem inspired by an old photograph in a family album. Find an old newspaper and write a poem inspired by a not-so-current event. So now I would like to actually introduce a kind of co-host or another author. In Dancing Fingers, there are 6 parts of my poems and my sister Adriana's poems. My sister's poems are contemporary free verse poems, and here's Adriana Svitak, my sister, to read one of her poems. Hi, Adriana.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Gleamy crystal lights up upon your forehead. Cool and cold, like it has some magic power forcing you to be there. It's smooth and white and clear,